Is the American dream still attainable, or has it become a financial nightmare? Well, according to Investopedia, the cost of achieving the American dream has now ballooned to over $5 million across a lifetime. That's right, $5 million to retire comfortably, raise a family, own a home, and afford health care. And yet, the average American with a college degree earns just around $2.8 million over their career. So, how do you bridge the gap? Welcome to the Next Chapter Living podcast. Our host, Steven Sabo, is a financial advisor at Executive Financial Group, where they specialize in helping families navigate the financial realities of retirement. Steven brings clarity, compassion, and strategy to a conversation that is more urgent than ever. You can learn more about Steven and his team at executivefinancialgroup.com. Again, that's executivefinancialgroup.com. You can also schedule a complimentary consultation by simply clicking the Contact Us button in the upper right-hand corner. Steven, how are you today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you, Alyssa. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderfully. Good. It seems sort of, maybe not so magical Christmassy as we're talking about this in December to talk about whether the American dream exists or if it's a nightmare. But it also feels, very applicable because we are in the process of, spending a good amount of money on Christmas shopping and sort of doing all of these dreamy, magical things. And it just, we're going to dive into that today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, like you said, it's one of those things. Now, I'm not the Grinch here, people. I'm going to help you navigate this whole thing. But whenever you hear a number like that, $5 million, it can be daunting. It's pretty scary to a lot of people, I think, whenever you put those numbers out there and you say, this, according to our research, this is the number. And, it's a lot. It's a big pill to swallow for a lot of people. And, I think it puts on a lot of added stress during a time, especially like now when we don't need it.
And those sorts of numbers are sort of clickbaity, for lack of a better word, because there are so many factors that are taken into consideration or not taken into consideration, depending on the article. And it's where a voice such as yours can sort of help us reason through what would otherwise be a very emotional roller coaster of, this article tells me I need, $5 million and I'm only ever going to make 2.8 in my lifetime. I give up. Or, this article over here says, taxes are going to be this and I won't have Social Security by the time I get there, and I give up. And so you're going to be our sort of voice of reason through this. Yeah,
and like you said, there are just so many different variables and factors that go into this. For instance, our small town, Pennsylvania, Butler, Pennsylvania, is going to be wildly different in terms of those numbers than, say, Metro Atlanta or Washington, D.C., York, any of those places, because I can tell you this right now. I'd say there's a fair amount of our clients that we work with that will probably never reach that number. And all of our clients are happily retired, comfortable, enjoying themselves, without anything to worry, because what they do have, we've planned with, and we've planned for all of these different things that pop up. And again, it's somebody's budget that might be $8,000 a month, say in New York or any of those other places where, around here, their bills might be much smaller. A lot of people have been in their home for a really long time, and, they may have bought their house for under $100,000 so many years ago, and now it's worth a ton, but they have no mortgage. Their bills are low. People live pretty simply around here, they just want to make sure that they have the basic necessities and they can do what they want to do and enjoy themselves. But a lot of the times we see that, maybe their bills aren't that bad. And so, that $5 million number, again, it's so relative to who you are, how you spend money. Look at a dual income household. That's a factor. I mean, if you only have one person working in the household and the other one is, working from the house or staying at home and taking care of things, that's going to look different than having two people that are working. Absolutely. And so, it's totally subjective in that, don't get scared by that $5 million number. Like you said, a lot of the times it's more of a clickbait. Hey, read this story. But I can tell you right now, at least for a fair amount of our clients, it's not going to be the reality. And that's okay. They don't
Sure.
they don't need that to be the reality.
I think that's refreshing probably to the majority of people that are listening. Because again, you're talking about a $5 million number is nearly twice what the average American with a college degree is making. And so I think it's refreshing to hear that there are still people that are successfully and happily, more importantly, happily retiring. Because when I dove into that article and it was talking about what constituted the American dream, actually number one on the list, there was a tie, but number one on the list was retiring in comfort. The idea of I can still have a lifestyle that I'm used to, whatever that looks like for me, but I can do so without the fear and with confidence and clarity and joy. Second to that was affording quality health care. And a close third, the affording quality healthcare was tied for first. And then second was owning a home. But to your point, many of your clients have achieved those very things.
Absolutely. Yeah. A lot of our clients, and like I said, it'll be different anywhere that you go. But, the number one thing that we hear from people is they just want peace. They want peace of mind, knowing that if there is an emergency, that they can take care of it, that it's not going to set them back or maybe send them back to work when they're 80 years old. Right. They might not need his and hers Jaguars. Right. But, they just want to make sure that their bills are paid. They have a reliable car. Their mortgage is paid off. They can afford to, if they need some sort of healthcare down the road or anything like that, that they can do that without exhausting all of their assets.
So right along in that same article was this idea that you needed, there's this magic number that you need to retire, the 1.6 million. And that's assuming that, you would do a 4% draw every year, which is $64,000. And they were talking about that as being, the most basic need.
Yeah.
Are you seeing people coming through the door that have 1.6? Is that the norm? And is that what people need to be aiming for? Yeah. Or is there flexibility there?
There's a lot of flexibility there. Again, in our area, that is not the case. We're seeing it more and more often because I think that, back whenever I first started and was coming out of college and things like that, $1 million was always that number that was like, man, if I could get to $1 million, I'll be rich. And, and now 1.6. And of course, 2 years from now, it's going to be 2 million.
Right.
But I do see people getting closer to it just because, things are changing.
Sure.
You do have a lot of dual household incomes. And so, you're seeing that whenever people are saving together like that you can put a lot more money away. But no, I don't believe it's the reality. Again, there are a handful of our clients, that have reached that goal and all of them, like I said, are retired comfortably and enjoying themselves. So, I don't think that it is, that's why these are called magic numbers, because they are, it seems like they're using magic to make them up because it's not the reality for most people, especially that we see. And so, I don't want people to get discouraged because it can be discouraging. You think and you're looking at your accounts and you're going, oh my gosh, am I ever going to get there?
That feels so far away.
Yeah. And so, really knowing the numbers, sitting down, budgeting, doing those things, that's what's going to tell you. It's not some magic number that says once you reach this point, everything's going to be okay. We don't see that as the reality for a lot of people.
An earlier report that came out in 2024 had put the American Dream number at 4.4 million. So in just 1 year, we've had a jump of $600,000, and that was to account for health care. Yes. What should people be planning for in terms of healthcare? Because we are looking at longer lifespans, and people, retirement is not just a couple of years like it used to be. It now can be a whole nother chapter, which is, aptly the title of the podcast. Absolutely. It is another chapter.
Yeah, absolutely. Healthcare is one of those things where, unfortunately, I wish there was a better solution for everybody, but it seems that, nobody in our government wants to ever fix the problem. They just want to blame the other side for
Push it to somebody else.
Exactly. But, it is a really big, I just helped a gentleman. He's been wanting to retire forever. And, we've had meeting after meeting after meeting. He was so nervous and the price of this and, wanting to be able to afford all these things. And, he was going to retire at 60 and his wife had some previous health issues that they needed good health care for because she needed care. And so that was one of the big things. And whenever he went went and saw somebody about some healthcare, he was like, gosh, they're quoting like $1,200 a month for the two of us. And it just seems like, I don't know that we're going to be able to make that happen. And again, it really comes down to the planning and sitting down and taking a look at the budget and seeing, okay, here's the fixed needs, right? And then let's add in healthcare. And, is there any wiggle room that we can cut back on something? Maybe you're paying for stuff whenever you're working that you may not need in retirement. Like, okay, let's see if we can do that. And then, too, for a lot of people, staying longer until you can reach, Medicare age is becoming more. We're seeing that a lot more these days because, healthcare is a big part of this, and it's a big expense these days, and it's hard to plan for. I mean, there are certain things that you can do and make sure that you get ready, but it is tough. And, so we're seeing people, if you can't bring your benefits with you from your job, which not a lot of places are doing anymore, we see people that are staying until 65 or until one of them is 65 in order to, get benefits and go on Medicare and things like that. So, it's just really about sitting down and budgeting for it and knowing, okay, here's what it is. Now's the time to take a hard look at some of the things that we're spending on. And is there anything that we can cut back? Or until we bridge this gap until Medicare, maybe we spend a bit more of our assets and then we cut back later. So, there's a bunch of different ways to do it, but it is, I know it is top of the mind for most of our clients.
It really is a personalized conversation. And that's, I think, the part that needs to be reiterated over and over, because what worked for your neighbor and you're looking over there going, oh man, they've got it so good, might not work for you, or vice versa. You look at what their situation is and you're like, man, retirement, if that's what retirement looks like, I don't want to do that. But it doesn't mean that that's necessarily what your situation is going to be, because to your point, you really have to do the hard dive into the numbers. Retirement is not something we can guesstimate on, is it?
Absolutely not. If you're going into retirement guesstimating, you're going to run into more problems than you probably want to deal with. And so, I know it's, a lot of people don't want to be confronted with the numbers a lot of the times, but it is so important to know, what you have coming in, what's going out, and is there room to, wiggle room to fix any of that? Because again, nobody wants to go back to work when they're 80 years old because they've run out of money or they're struggling or anything like that. So taking the time, knowing it, confronting those things, early on is going to put you in a much better position for you to be able to deal with everything, throughout retirement.
This analogy sort of just popped into my head, but it's almost like, it feels like when you're sitting down with your financial advisor and it's like, here's my portfolio. This is the reality of my situation. This is my budget. This is what I've saved. It's sort of like going to the doctor's office, right?
Yes.
You're having that conversation and, they're going to put you on the scale and they're going to look and go, did you gain weight? Did you lose weight? Are you doing the things that we've talked about last time? What's your blood pressure? But they need that information and for you to be honest about it in the same way that your financial advisor does. And you hear these conversations, right? In the same way the doctor does, right? The doctor's heard and seen it all. You have too, I imagine.
Day in and day out. And look, I'm not here to judge anybody. I certainly have spent money on things that, maybe I shouldn't have, or I'm not eating as healthy as I need to be. But at the end of the day, we do need to know these things. And so whenever we're asking people those questions, it's not because I'm nosy or I want to know anything or I'm going to sit here and judge you for it. But in order for me to do my job to the best of my ability for you, I need to know everything, right? I want to have that relationship with you where you can come to me and tell me these things, because if I don't know something and I'm telling you to do one thing and I don't know that something else is going on over here, they could interact negatively, and that could be detrimental, to your retirement or to your lifestyle or whatever it is. So I want to know as much as I can up front so that I can deal with it and navigate these problems. And again, look, hey, I'm not here to judge anybody, but in order for me to do my job, if you're lying to your doctor and telling them that you're, a picture of health and they're not
3 packs a day.
It's just, it's not going to be good for you. So, but it is, it's unfortunate. A lot of people don't want to deal with it, but look, hey, I'm here to walk you through it. I got to put my therapist hat on and say, it's okay. All right. We're going to work around this. We're going to figure these out.
I think it's so important for people to hear that it's okay to share, that there isn't anything that you haven't seen, in somebody's portfolio. You're not looking at it going, oh, wow, man, they really screwed up. There's a genuine desire to help somebody reach their goals. That's why you're doing what it is that you're doing.
Absolutely. And you know what? Everybody makes mistakes in their lives. And sometimes things don't go the way that you want them to. But again, I've seen it all. I've heard it all. We've dealt with it all. And so, again, it's not going to be some surprise to me or anything like that. And, and I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to help you.
I want to wrap it up with one final conversation is for those that are nearing retirement, but are still sort of, because we're living in, I think, economically challenging times, especially for younger people. And so there's a unique stress on nearing retirees because they're still, in a lot of cases, helping their children or grandchildren because they see that, oh, they're not making as much money. Their dollar doesn't go as far. How do you help them prioritize their retirement when they're feeling the obligation to want to help children or grandchildren?
Yeah, again, it's about those tough conversations sometimes. We had to have one not too long ago with clients and they wanted to help their son out by paying, I can't remember, it was a loan, school loan, something like that. And, they wanted to take $30,000 or $40,000 out of an IRA. And you got to explain to them and say, hey, look, you can do this, but here's what it's going to do for you. One, you're going to pay taxes on it.
Right.
Two, it's going to be less money that you have for your retirement. So if you want to keep this amount of income going, we're going to have to take a look at that. So there's no problem with wanting to help your kids. I was blessed to have parents that were able to help us out, but I also realized too that it's getting harder and harder to do it all these days. And so, you just have to have those conversations with them and say, hey, look, here's how it's going to affect you. Take a look at how we want to go about this. Maybe you can't give them the whole amount that you wanted to or pay off the full loan, but you can help a little bit. And so, just having those conversations and laying out on the table kind of what the consequences are of doing those things, I think puts it into perspective for a lot of people so that they can make that decision. Ultimately, it's up to them. I'm going to do whatever they tell me, but I'm going to give you my opinion and tell you, hey, here's how it's going to affect you and here's what it's going to do. So
at least at that point, they're making an informed decision. Again, not going back to the idea of guesstimating. We want to make informed decisions so that we know if I do A, B is what's going to happen.
That's right. Yeah. But as long as they're informed, at the end of the day, it's your life, it's your money. You can do whatever you want. I'm here to help you make the right decisions.
So if somebody's listening to this and going, I don't have that person that is sitting down and having that hard conversation, maybe they're self-managing and doing a little more guesstimating than they should. How can they reach out to you? Yeah,
give us a call. Our phone number is 724-283-2806. You can visit our website at executivefinancialgroup.com. There's links on there. There's all kinds of information. You can go to our Facebook page at Executive Financial Group. Reach out, give us a call, shoot me an email. We'd love to talk to you. We'd love to see how we can help you and put a plan together. Let's have that hard conversation that you're avoiding.
Well, the American dream may be evolving. It may look a little different now than it did 40 years ago, but with the right financial strategies, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's out of reach, and knowledge is indeed your greatest asset. So if you are ready to write the next chapter in your story, head on over to executivefinancialgroup.com. Again, that's executivefinancialgroup.com. And of course, make sure you subscribe wherever it is that you're listening so that you never miss an episode. And as Steven mentioned, you can also find him on YouTube and Facebook. Steven, it's always a pleasure to chat with you. I love that it's a no judgment zone, as it should be. People should be able to have these hard conversations because without them, we don't reach the milestones that we're aiming for.
That's right. Yeah. You know what? I'm not here to judge. I'm here to help people. And, ultimately that's my goal in life, is to help you enjoy your retirement. So,
well, we appreciate your time and I look forward to the next conversation.
Thanks a lot, Alyssa. I appreciate it.
Bye.
The opinions expressed by Steven Sabo and guests on this podcast are their own and do not reflect the opinions of this podcast station. All statements and opinions expressed are based upon information considered reliable, although it should not be relied upon as such. Any statements or opinions are subject to change without notice. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Past performance cannot be used as an indicator to determine future results. Any strategies mentioned may not be suitable for everyone. Information expressed does not take into account your specific situation or objectives and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for you. Before acting on any information mentioned, please consult with a qualified tax or investment advisor to determine if it is suitable for your specific situation. This program is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information with regard to subject covered. Investment advisory services offered through Virtue Capital Management, LLC, VCM, a registered investment advisor. VCM and Executive Financial Group are independent of each other. Pennsylvania Insurance License number 670429. Any guarantees mentioned are backed by the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company and may be subject to caps, restrictions, fees, and surrender charges as described in the annuity contract. Steven Sabo and/or Executive Financial Group are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency.